Do you like Bionicle? I like Bionicle. Hey, let's talk about Bionicle. This is the Bionicle Inspiration Series where we talk about some mocks, talk about Bionicle, and just have a good time. And on top of that, we get to look at some tips and tricks to help help inspire you in the future for something you might be building. So let me take a sip of my juice box and let's get going. Ah, refreshing. All right, let's begin with a mock by our good man Joxon. Oh, before I start, actually, now I've already told you who it is. This is a mock by Joxon. But before we get to the mock by Joxon, which is called Space Knight, I'll show you some photos of this while I do a little public service announcement. Don't forget, I normally say this at the end of the episode, but judging by some messages that I've got, people sometimes miss that. So I might as well say it at the start of the episode before we begin. Don't forget, if you want to see one of your mocks on this episode, or future episodes, not this episode, I've already recorded it, so I'm sorry, but your mock may very well not be on here unless you're one of the people, which it is. But, if you want one of your mocks on the show, or one of your friends' mocks, or you want to suggest a theme, you can, either in the comments below, or you check the links in the description, and there you can see some of my social media, and a few other links, and there's various, messaging systems on those things, like Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and you can suggest away with some photos, a link, anything, and I'll add it to the list, and one day your mock might very well get on the show, so Knights and Armor was a requested theme, and that's why we're doing that this time. So, let us begin with the mock by Joxon, as we were talking about. So, Space Knight. What a great idea. Obviously, this episode's about knights. I think I said that. I don't remember, but you can tell because it's called that and you clicked on the link. But, knights. Awesome. Why not combine it with something else? Space Knights. Wow, that's cool. Space and knights in one theme. Awesome. And heck, you could do that with anything, really. You could be like, okay, remember that cool theme, Aqua Raiders? I'm going to combine that with castle and knights and stuff and make a really cool Aqua Raiders themed knight. Wouldn't that be cool? So yeah, see what you can combine with it, because it's cool to take the concept of a knight, a cool armored dude with some weapons and stuff. Why not change it up a bit? Why not make it sort of sci-fi or, not sci-fi and something completely different? Steampunk, who knows? You play around, you see what you can do. It's a great idea. I love it. And it's cool to see how some of those concepts have been applied. He's got this really cool jousting rod and his shield, but they're turned into really super sci-fi things. Like this shield looks like it's all made out of like techie parts and it's sort of electronic, and maybe if he presses on it, it does sorts of cool, sci-fi awesome stuff. Who knows? But it's really awesome, isn't it? Looks great. Adding that dish on the front there too. Really cool to see a nice, I believe that's a printed part. Or is that stickered? Is that even custom? I don't know where that comes from. Man, testing my Lego knowledge in this episode. But, really cool to see a sort of sci-fi shield like that. It fits so very well with this theme. And even cooler to see an adaptation of that jousting rod having a sort of laser sword, trans-red tip on the end there. Awesome color scheme, by the way. Very, very much fits that sort of sci-fi knight-esque vibe. Trans-red, white, and black. Really, really nice, isn't it? It's very... What's the word? It just fits with the theme, doesn't it? It's kind of got that clean science fiction dystopia kind of vibe going on. It's awesome. It's really cool. One thing that's not in my notes, but I really want to touch upon it because I just saw it here zooming in. Look at the arms there. I can't tell if that's custom or not. It looks like it might be slightly, but even still, typically with CCBS, and you can see it on the upper arm there, which that isn't custom, but that's fine, doesn't need to be. How whenever you attach a CCBS shell, when you look at it from behind, it's not exactly the nicest looking, whatever you want to call it. You can see the bone, you can see where it connects on the CCBS part there, and you could argue, depending on the mock that you're looking at, that could contrast with the texture. If you're going for a super smooth thing and you look at it from behind, you're kind of like, that illusion's kind of disrupted to an extent. But what's really cool here is on that lower arm there, he's simply used a Robo Rider or Slicer, whatever it's called, thing to add onto the arm there, to just kind of cover that up. Isn't that a nice little addition there? And it really does the job. It really makes that whole thing look a lot smoother and makes everything flow very nicely and coherently. It's awesome. Really, really nice addition there. Just a little something, a little detail there that, the devil's in the details, and it looks really good. Really like the torso too, using the Nexo Knight's shield part there, because obviously that in itself is medieval themed, and actually kind of space medieval themed almost, because Nexo Knights is essentially that, isn't it? So having that sort of printed horse on the front there adds even more to the knight effect. And even cooler to sort of see medieval-themed Lego sets, elements from those make it into this mock, because it just helps make it seem more medieval and awesome. It's a nice little addition and a great way to kind of look at stuff, I think that's cool. And of course, I think we definitely need to touch up on the helmet there. Really cool to see that sort of Chima CCBS Chima guys using some of those axe parts there to create that sort of head crest on the back of the knight's helmet there. And of course, the knight's helmet uses one of those Speedor's bike pieces in white, which we've seen some of those Speedor's pieces before in a few mocks in the Bionicle Inspiration series in our 50+ episodes. So really cool to see those very continuously being used in some very, very nice ways. So good job, Bionicle community. You're doing good stuff. So that's awesome. That's really, really cool to see. Yeah, so a lot of stuff going on there. A lot of really, really cool little details in that. And yeah, really nice take on the theme. So let's move on to the next mock, which is by our other good friend, Allura, however you want to pronounce it, or just Molly Ray. Now, this is sort of a more traditional knight. I guess you could say it's kind of like a bad guy knight, just from the color scheme, you know. That's something that I've sort of touched upon in color scheme episodes or a few other things where, you know, if you're going for a bad guy, use some sort of darker shades or like your trans purples, those colors that as soon as you see them you think like, oh, that guy's a bad guy, you know what I mean? And it's even cooler the way that the color blocking on this works in terms of, you know, it kind of looks like the armor is all the sort of grey and speckled grey and everything else throughout this mock. And then his underneath is this sort of trans purple that's almost emanating out of the armor, kind of like he's this shadow warrior, and he's not even human, he's kind of made up of magic and stuff. And again, that's kind of fitting with the sort of medieval fantasy vibe, and it's just really cool, a nice take on it, and really nice way to address the color scheme. Also really cool to see the Captain Phasma cape there used on the back. Again, using more CCBS stuff. We saw the lightsaber in the last episode, and now in this episode we see the Captain Phasma cape, so that's really, really cool to see. Love that a lot. Now I want to talk about the leg design on this because I really, really like it. Just using one of those Hero Factory torsos there, and adding some of those Exoforce arms there to kind of curve over the back and stuff. Just a nice design, and really cool to see a torso part used on the leg there. Just nice. You know, it looks really good. You know, those torso pieces are really cool because you've got a lot of connection points on them. And I find that a lot when you're building. It's nice to just grab a part that that has a lot of possible connection points, because you can really easily play around with it, and slowly and surely through some trial and error you can be like, oh, hey, actually this kind of works for this, and soon you have a whole completed leg or arm or whatever you're struggling on. And yeah, it's really cool. Really, really cool. Also really love this sword. It's taking one of those Knight's Kingdom parts and adapting to it a little bit, adding a sort of larger hilt to it, even got some tires on there, all sorts of stuff to create a really, really awesome sword that's very fitting to the mock. And now, we were talking a little bit about Knight's Kingdom parts there, and a lot of this mock has some Knight's Kingdom parts on it, and normally I'd talk a little bit more about that, but I really want to touch upon it in the next mock we have here, which is by Noble Terry, and is called Knight. Now, yes, Knight's Kingdom parts, as I was talking about, we can see them again here on this mock, on the shoulders used there, and one of the coolest things about this is you can very easily see how this is connected. The arms there are very simple, just some bones and some Hero Factory shells put on those bones, and a tire even in there too, which is really cool, just to kind of help, just add a little bit more depth and detail. It's very nice. But simply attaching that Knight's Kingdom armor piece there, he's literally just got a sort of connector part there, put it in the hole on the Knight's Kingdom part, and then shoved a minifigure weapon in there so that it has that minifigure rod connection, which very easily fits into the two hole pieces on the CCBS armor. So he's literally just put the armor on as if it was armor. How cool is that? That's such a simple, easy connection, and ironically, very much how armor actually works. So why not try that? You know, a lot of CCBS parts and things like that have these sort of different connections in that regard. Are there parts that you can literally put on top of it as if it were actually armor? You know, it might be something nice to try around and then experiment with, and this mock has done that very nicely there on the shoulders, so yeah, what a great little addition, what a great little detail. Now this mock has a little bit more system on it, especially if we look at the head there. Again, we see that sort of really cool crest design that you know sometimes see on some traditional armor helmet pieces and things like that. Very cool. And most of that head seems to be made primarily out of system. But what I really like about it is, you know, maybe it does. Some of these shots you can't really tell if it does or doesn't. But you can't quite see whether or not there is sort of, you know, an eye or flesh or something under the helmet. It's kind of just alluded to with the rough shape of it, and I really like that. You know, maybe you're struggling with something and you're not too sure how to make a custom head. Does it need eyes? You know, is that necessarily necessary? You know, and if you look at it from traditional armor perspective, you know, sometimes it can be a little harder to see the guy underneath the helmet. So I think it's a really nice, you know, perspective and a nice take on building a quote-unquote mask or helmet or something like that. It's very, very nice and great to see it all primarily made out of system and how well it flows with the rest of the very primarily Bionicle body, or CCBS, or both really, I guess, yeah. One thing I also really like is the sort of waist design, using those Rakshi pieces to kind of create this sort of waistcoat design. It flows very nicely, looks again like armor on top of the body underneath there. Because, I mean, that's kind of what armor is, in a way, like clothing, in a way, it goes on top of what you're currently wearing. And so kind of bulking out a bit like that, I think that works really well, because that's kind of what armor does to you, right? And then adding that, it's not really a cloth part, it's sort of a more sort of plasticky thing, but adding that flag there on the waist, it helps even more with that sort of flowing waistcoat design, and works very, very nicely and very, very well. So I think that's really awesome to see. And it's a nice little addition and a nice little detail, and it can be a nice way to sort of, add a bit more detail and depth to things, and it's nice to see how well that complements, rather, the printed CCBS shells just next to it. It's nice, really nice. So let us move on to the final mock in this episode, which I'm sure from the thumbnails you were like, oh man, look who it is. It's our friend Meta Knight, and this mock is by IGU. So this mock is very primarily system, and some of you might be like, I came here for Bionicle. You said Bionicle at the start of the episode. Yeah. But you look at the feet, there's some CCBS. Done. It's close enough. But even still, I always like saying this, like how much Bionicle CCBS do you really need in the mock? What if you branched a little bit more onto the system side? You can do some really interesting things in a system that you just can't do with Bionicles. So give it a go. Who knows? Like, for example, that sword. Really cool sword design. Looks great, But it's all primarily system. But you could easily transfer and just simply put that onto a Bionicle mock. Why not? Give it a go. Who knows? But really cool to see those little shoes there. The little purple CCBS armor there. Very, very cool. Now, I definitely included this because that's something that's always super fun and super cool to do, is to be inspired by some video games, because everyone plays them, And if you don't, that's alright, you don't need to. But, I know a lot of people grab their inspiration from video games. So it's always really good to take one of your favorite video game characters, a character from your childhood who you loved seeing in a video game, or a movie, or anything, really, and transferring it into Lego. It's always good fun. So yeah, why not give that a go? And there's a concept on this that I really wanted to touch up upon. So in some of these shots, we can see that he has these really cool wings. And you might be like, where did those wings come from? Well, they come from an old Dino Attack set, which I believe in some countries was actually called Dino 2010, which had nothing to do with the year 2010, but it was called that. And some of them, ironically, it was actually really weird. The Dino 2010 or 2010, I don't know how you were supposed to pronounce that. Some of them come with cages, like you see this helicopter or this tank or whatever. They came with a cage to hold the dinosaur. But the Dino Attack sets, the exact same set, but it didn't come with the cage at all. How weird is that? Yeah, I don't know. Here in Australia, we got Dino Attack. So I don't know what you Americans or wherever else you guys live. Let me know. Which ones did you get? Because, man, I remember looking in a Lego magazine. I'm like, what's Dino 2010? I'm like, oh, this will be the sequel theme. Like, nice. And then years passed, and I was like, where was Dino 2010? What happened? And apparently it was, I don't know. Some places got it, some places didn't. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, besides the point, I'm going off subject here. One of the sets came with a pterodactyl, and the wings on that are the wings that have been used on this Meta Knight mock. And it's really, really fitting. Works very nicely. It's a really unique, awesome sort of texture and shape to those wings there, and it fits the mock very, very nicely. But then we see some other back shots here, and we can tell that those wing pieces are removable, and the back has sort of different modes, for lack of a better term. You can have the wings there, or you can have this sort of little cape design thing here, like that. I think it's really cool. Why not kind of have a mock that has a little bit more playability to it? Maybe it's like an action figure. You take out one of the arms and you put another thing in, and now he's got a sword arm. Or, instead of these eyes, you can take out his eyes, and now he has these ones or something. Why not do that? Have it like an action figure and have it have sort of multiple different add-ons or detachments and stuff. You can really go ham-bone with that. You could give a mock 20 different weapons and have fun making those, and giving your mock like 70 guns or triple the axes or something like that. Or yeah, he has his cape mode or his wing mode or sword arm mode or gun arm mode. I don't know. That's where your imagination comes in. So yeah, I think that's a really, really cool little detail. And I mean, yeah, that's done with primarily system here, but you could do that with Bionicle easily. So yeah, I think that's really cool. Really cool to see a very accurate, very awesome Meta Knight in system here. Very, very nice. Very cool to see some little system not system highlights, some Bionicle highlights on a primarily system mock as well. Very nice. Very nice. Oh, also, I'll quickly touch up upon this and then we'll finish off here. He uses a lot of mixel joints in here. Definitely branch out and try and use some mixel joints because, man, they are really helpful. If you don't have any ball joints, using mixel joints, oh baby, it's good, you know. And if you're like, but I don't have any mixel joints, then use clips. And if you're like, but I don't have any clips, then you'll be like, well, figure something out. That's where you use your imagination and see what you can find. Who knows? Try and find a new connection. Be the guy who invents the new one. And everyone's like, oh, that's ingenious. Hey, see what you can do. Anyway, that's about it for this episode. I'm going to take another sip from my juice box and end it there. Normally I talk about the mocks at the end and the links in the descriptions. I already did that. But, you know, if you forgot about it, do that now. Yeah, check the mocks that you saw in today's episode because, man, oh man, these guys are some good builders. Check out some of the other stuff that they've done. Anyway, peace out. I'm going to see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Happy building.